Good evening. Today is Monday, December 9th, and the time now is 6:04, and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and remote meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023 by Resolution Number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website, designated posting place 24 hours prior to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines of public comment at open meetings and public hearings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are 2 public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first is limited to items on the agenda, and the second public comment opportunity allows any subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. We will also take comments during the budget public hearing tonight. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Babcock.
Here.
Trustee Crane.
Here.
Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, December 9th, 2024, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. One of my primary roles as mayor, in accordance with Rule 6 of the Board Rules of Procedure, is to preside on all meetings of the board and to maintain decorum and fair and equitable treatment of all speakers at our public meetings. Pursuant to the board's adopted rules, it is always best for only one person to have the floor at any given time, and it is best for every speaker to be recognized by the mayor before proceeding to speak. I thought it'd be good to take a brief moment to remind all board members of these requirements, given that we will be conducting public hearings on the town's budget tonight, which will be one of the most important annual actions for the board. I expect all the board members to likely have questions regarding aspects of the budget, so we will get to that agenda item. Please wait to be recognized by me, before you ask questions or staff or provided their general comments regarding the 2025 budget. Let's also follow this process when we get to the trustee reports. And with that, let me if you would please join me in a moment of silence for all of our loved ones who have been lost. Thank you very much. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is a review approve agenda. Are there any changes to this evening's agenda? Okay, hearing or seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. We have an agenda for this evening. Next is our staff report. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustees, you have my report. I do have a couple of things I'd like to highlight. As you know, I believe Mary's reached out. We are having a board retreat on January 4th at 11 o'clock out of Public Works. And we'll have all the board will be there as well as key staff members. So looking forward to that. This is our last meeting of the year. I just want to remind everybody, we won't meet again formally as a board, as the Board of Trustees until January 13th. And on the 13th, we will have a photographer here, so we'll be doing group photos, individual photos. So if you're going to get your hair cut or highlighted or whatever you do, you might want to do it that day, but or be however you want. And then finally, I would like to introduce, I didn't tell him before, but Kevin Nash. He's our new deputy town engineer. Kevin comes to us with like 30 years of experience. We are just so fortunate to have him, and I think he knows that we feel that way. Eric and I have worked with Kevin for many, many years on various boards the mayor has been on as well. So just having him step in where he left off is going to be fantastic. So I'd like to just say hi to him, and, you know, maybe when we're many times that we're having cake, you can share a bite of cake with him. And that's all I have, and I can answer any questions on my report.
Thank you, Helen. Questions or comments for Helen tonight? All right, seeing none, thank you. Oh, sorry, it's hard to see the green.
Let's see. It's the season, you know. I don't know if this is a related topic area, but I think it's called 1601. Any update on that? And is there any concern that any of that might go away now that things have changed?
Well, okay, just for everybody's, just to get the vernacular, so you're all singing from the same, you know, engineering playbook. The 1601 process is a federal process that you use to go through FHWA and CDOT to get an interchange approved. And we are working on this process right now. Just as a reminder, by the end of February, we should have alternatives and be ready to go to the Transportation Commission. We're looking for some sort of public meeting in January. So we're right now fleshing out all the potential alignments of the interchange. There's no reason why we would stop. It's fully funded. And the goal is to get this approved and try to glom on to the segment 5 funding so that we can get the bulk of the interchange funded through this segment.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thanks, Helen. All right, we'll move on to our informational item tonight. It'll be the Planning Commission reappointments, and our town planner, Colin Morales, will introduce this item. Sir, you have the floor.
All right. So, Mayor, trustees, tonight I'm here to talk to you about commissioner reappointments for the Planning Commission. So this would typically just go on the consent agenda, but since we have a couple of new trustees on the board, we thought it'd be a good idea to use this as an opportunity to give a little refresher on what the Planning Commission is and what their role is. Sorry, the text is a little small here, but the Planning Commission is an advisory board or advisory body to the board on all things planning and land use related. So this means that they make recommendations to the board on the applications that they review, but they do not have the power to approve or deny proposals on their own. They can only make a recommendation to the board. So the Planning Commission's scope of authority has several different facets. These include the preparation and maintenance of the town's comprehensive plan, the implementation of the land use code, recommendations to the Board of Trustees on certain land use applications, as well as conducting hearings on land use code amendments. So I mentioned that they only hear certain land use applications, so they don't hear all of the land use applications that go through the development process here in the town. They typically only hear applications that have to go through the public hearing process. So these types of applications include annexation, establishment of zoning, rezoning, preliminary plat, as well as conditional use. Things like final plats, site plans, admin plats, and minor subdivisions, those are administratively approved, and then they go to the Board of Trustees for adoption by ordinance. So the Planning Commission is composed of 5 regular members and 2 alternate members. So the alternates are allowed to discuss the applications and proposals with other commission members during the public hearings and the meetings, but they cannot vote unless a regular member is not present for the meeting and thus unable to vote. So the commissioners are appointed by the Board of Trustees. They serve 4-year terms. They do not have term limits. The terms are staggered so that no more than 3 Planning Commission members are replaced in a given year. And so in order to be eligible to be a Planning Commissioner, an applicant has to be a resident as well as qualified elector who has lived in the town for at least 12 consecutive months prior to their appointment. So here's a look at the current Planning Commission and its members. It's actually pretty exciting as we have a full planning commission currently with the 5 members and 2 alternatives, and no vacancies. So the chairman of the planning commission is Ryan Sword, and the chairman pro tem is Karen Peterson. Chairman Sword's term expires in 2026, and Chair pro tem Peterson's term expires here at the end of the year, part of the reason we're here tonight. The other 3 regular commission members include Gerald Abshire, Charles Geringer, and William Jorgensen. Commissioner Abshire and Commissioner Jorgensen's terms, they expire in 2026, while Commissioner Geringer's term expires here at the end of the year. The 2 alternate planning commission members are Chad Rademacher and Timothy Corliss. Commissioner Rademacher's term expires in 2026, while Commissioner Corliss's term expires here at the end of the year as well. So with that, staff is bringing forward a recommendation of reappointment for these 3 commissioners that have terms expiring this year. So Chair Pro Tem Peterson, Commissioner Geringer, and Commissioner Corliss. All 3 of these members meet the eligibility requirements for reappointment, and they have served in their roles more than competently. So this item is on the consent agenda for tonight. So I believe there does not need to be a motion regarding the informational item unless there's a desire to remove it from the consent agenda for additional discussion and or consideration. So with that, I'm here if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Colin. I have a question just in general. Was that advertised? Did anybody in the town get notified that there are positions potentially that we could move them into, or was it we're just happy with those commissioners, so we just are renewing them?
The latter.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question as much as a statement.
Okay, go ahead.
And just seeing Ms. Peterson here, thank you for stepping forward to volunteering on it. Also, thank you to Mr. Geringer and Mr. Corliss for stepping forward and volunteering for the town for the planning commission, because I know it can be a lot of work. So just to appreciate their willingness.
Okay. Thank you, Colin, very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. And the overview is great. Thanks. So thank you.
Yeah.
And again, ditto Karen and the rest of the commissioners. Okay, we'll move on to our proclamation for Volunteer Recognition Month. My goodness, December 2024. I've asked Trustee Schranz to read the proclamation. Sir, it's on you.
Proclamation for the Volunteer Recognition Month, December 2024. Whereas volunteers in the town of Mead dedicate their time and talents to serving others, making a profound impact by organizing food drives, supporting local schools, beautifying public spaces, participating in community events that enrich the lives of residents. And whereas volunteers play a crucial role in the success of recreation programs, serving as volunteer coaches and supporting youth and adult activities that promote health, teamwork, and engagement. And whereas dedicated volunteers help make events such as Mead Community Day, Fishing is Fun, and other town celebrations possible, fostering a strong and connected community. And whereas the Mead Area Chamber of Commerce volunteers work tirelessly to support local businesses, foster economic growth, and collaborate with the town to enhance events and strengthen ties within Mead. And whereas the contributions of volunteers not only address the needs of our community, but also inspire others to give back, embodying the values of kindness, civic responsibility, and neighborly care that define our town. And whereas it is fitting to recognize and honor the dedication of Mead's volunteers and encourage all residents to express their appreciation and consider joining in service to others. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor of the town of Mead, Colorado, does hereby proclaim December 2024 as Volunteer Recognition Month in the town of Mead. I encourage all residents to celebrate the invaluable contributions of our volunteers, from those who coach and lead recreation programs to those who support community events and local businesses. Together, we honor their unwavering commitment and generosity in making Mead extraordinary. given under her hand and the seal of town of Mead on this 9th day of December, 2024.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Shranz,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Next is our public comment. Board welcomes public comment at this time for any item on the agenda. We will also take comments regarding the budget during the public hearing numbers 10, and for items not on the agenda during the second public comment number 11. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. If you desire a conversation, please email the board or the town manager or attend the monthly coffee with the mayor. If you wish to speak during this public comment period, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Please start by stating your full name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you are representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak during this first public comment period of the evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and are approved with one motion and vote. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
I have a couple questions in the consent before. Just for my own information, just a couple big items on the check register. What does Civic Plus provide us?
They provide our website, our
So IT.
website hosting, our website software, our Unicode codification of our code. The Civic Rec software, which is the software for signing up for classes and recreation.
And Wilson and Company.
Wilson and Company is a engineer. Not sure what the
I
project
can
is in
speak to
there.
that.
Go ahead.
So we have different consulting engineers who went out for a RFP process using the federal process, qual-based. One of the consultants is Wilson and Company, based out of Loveland. And they are working on 2 primary projects for us right now. One being the 1601 process and the other being a collaborative effort between us and Berthoud on the design of County Road 7 between 38 and 56 in Berthoud. That area, that's that 2-mile stretch that's unpaved.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there a second on the second to the motion? Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Mary.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Shranz,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Thank you, staff, again, for putting the consent agenda together for us. And again, congratulations to Karen Peterson, Charles Geringer, and Tim Corliss, if I pronounced those names right. So again, thank you, Colin, for presenting that tonight. All right, we'll move on to our public hearing, 2025 proposed budget. This is a public hearing for that 2025 proposed budget. For this hearing, we will first hear from staff, then the public will be given an opportunity to speak or ask questions, followed by questions from the trustees. I'll open this public hearing, and the time now is 6:23, and we'll turn over the floor to Mary Strutt, our Administrative Services Director, and Lorraine Trotter, Professional Management Solutions. Ma'am?
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. We're here tonight for the 2025 budget public hearing. The process tonight for this public hearing is we are required to publicly post and publish, which was properly done. We'll review the proposed budget. We'll review specifically any changes since it was presented on October 14th. We will be available for public comment, and we will review and answer any of your questions tonight. So the 2025 budget schedule, we've seen this a couple of times, but I just want to point out again, our budget starts back in June when we meet with the board about projects, trying to put those together. And we do a whole process of meeting, submitting the budget, and preparing for tonight. One of the items on there, December 10th, Weld County the county deadline to recertify assessed values. They've already met that deadline. They actually had those to us a couple of weeks ago. So your budget is prepared for you with the latest information, and we will be ready to certify mill levies accordingly. So on October 14th, we talked about some potential variables to our budget, and one of them being the November 5th election and how that might affect our budget. So here are the issues we talked about. We were going to have potentially 1 to 3 new board members. We have 3 new board members here tonight. So thank you all for your service and being a part of this. We appreciate having you here. Police funding sales tax. That was a measure to approve additional sales tax for the town of Mead. That item did fail, so you will not see those numbers in your budget for tonight. Marijuana, there was a item on the election for marijuana in the town of Mead. Again, that item failed too, so there's no impact to our budget. The St. Vrain Valley School District bond issue, that did pass, and it's my understanding they will be building a K-8 school very soon on the Mead High School property, which is within the town of Mead. So if we go back to our proposed assumptions for the budget, these are the biggies, right? The biggies are property and sales tax revenues. We said no net gain. There was some legislation which affected property tax revenues and assessed values in 2024. Retail sales, interesting, we're watching our sales tax every month as it comes in. Sales have appeared to slow a little bit towards the end of 2024. However, we've gotten some new retail in the town of Mead between Quick Trip development and the downtown area. We'll see some new things coming in. So again, we expect it to kind of stay steady with those new opportunities coming in. Development for 2025, we expect residential to be about the same as it was in 2024. Commercial, there'll be some along the corridor of I-25, but again, we just got to wait and see how that flows from the developer's standpoint. Our trends. So you'll notice in your budget that we put in your budget 2 years of actuals and then 24 and 25. So those 2 years of actuals are 2022 and 2023. I include in this slide 2020 and 2021 just to show the change over that period of years. Remember 2020 was the COVID year. It also was a year where we started getting a lot of that remote sales tax coming in, so our sales tax started going up. But you can see the change in property tax over those years. Property tax is the bottom line on that bar chart. Okay. These are our general fund expenditures by department. And again, it just shows in the general fund where our money is going. Again, 1/3 generally is going to the police expenditures. The new department that you see in there, community center, is 5%. We expect that to be a little higher after 2025. We're anticipating an opening mid to late summer, so or fall even. So we'll have more expenditures in there in 2026. Is staff for the community center there's no staff in the community center budget in 2025 on the line items, but if you just
Trustee Hayne, can we just add, we'll gather questions at the end of the presentation during our time. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Residential building permits, I wanted to point out, I said that those were staying steady, but again, I like to keep in there that 2021 year, which was kind of our banner year with residential building permits. And we've hung at about 100 building permits a year for the last couple of years. We are predicting about 97 in 2025. So those building permits that come in, those affect building permit revenue into our general fund. It also affects our impact fund revenues. That comes directly from development, either residential or commercial. And again, I kept in there 2021 to show that high year of residential and commercial. So more assumptions for our 2025 proposed budget is we have several capital projects ongoing. The community center opening with additional programming in 2025 and 2026. We're going to continue to make internal process improvements Some of those are improvements, some of them not. You've seen some of the software that we're doing. We've made accessibility changes to the website, the ClearGov software for our budget. We're going to continue to work on identifying those. And staffing, the only changes for 2025 are the addition of an HR manager and community center staff. I put in here, here's the multi-year projects. Again, we talked about these in October. These are the projects coming specifically out of impact fee funds, which have crossed a couple of years. So I've got the funds on those for 2023, 2024, and 2025. So the big ones that we'll see in 2025, obviously, are those transportation projects, the 3rd and Welker intersection, along with the safe routes to school. 66 and County Road 7 underpass will likely be in 2025 and 2026. Main Street, the parking lot and alley. And then the Weld County 34 bridge design and construction. I want to be very clear, this bridge on Weld County 34 is west of County Road 5 over by Mead Ponds. It is not the bridge over I-25. That one's being done by CDOT as part of the construction project there. Segment 5 I-25 enhancements, we have some funds in the budget for that too. So again, I mentioned internal process improvements and staffing. So I was asked to include an org chart in this presentation, and it comes up really hard in this presentation, so I'm sorry about that. But the top of our organizational chart for the town of Mead is always the residents of the town. So you can see them up there, followed by the Board of Trustees, who makes the overall decisions for the town. The board gives direction to the town manager, who is responsible for all the staff. Also there on that line is the town attorney and the municipal court judge, who are appointed by the Board of Trustees. Below the town manager and reporting directly to the town manager are our different departments. Our departments are Public Works and Engineering, Communications, Community Development, Police, and Administrative Services. So the light blue color on those is for consultants. They're not actual staff members. They are consultants that we employ. Okay, even smaller for you to look at is the rest of the staff. Sorry about that. But again, we can print this out for the board and go over this possibly at that retreat, but I did want to get you the information that was asked for. So again, we've got the departments up at the top, the town engineer and public works, and the staff of under the town engineer and public works is the deputy town engineer, the development engineer, construction inspectors, pavement management, and public works. Under communications is business and marketing, events and media, and recreation, including the community center. Under community development, as consultants is our chief building inspector and the inspectors. That's Safe Build who we use for those. But we also have 2 planners. The code enforcement officer, we are moving that in 2025 to back under the police department, and the building permit technician. Under the police department, under chief of police, there's a commander, 2 sergeants, and 10, 12 officers, crossing guards, records and evidence, and a police admin. And for the administrative services director, I work with our HR consultant. We are hiring a human resource manager on staff, and have actually already interviewed and found a successful candidate for that. Our finance director, Lorraine, is a consultant for us, as is MJT, our IT. I have 2 finance HR clerks, a deputy clerk and court clerk, and an administrative clerk. So those are how the departments lay out. So as we go through the budget, we tend to try to put our projects towards the board's priorities, which have been discussed over the years, and those priorities are responsible growth, reliable infrastructure, public safety, fiscal stability, and connected community. Under responsible growth, we'll have the community center, the downtown alley and parking lot, and paving the town hall parking lot. We also have collaboration with I-25 on the I-25 North Express Lane constructions and that 1601 process for I-25 and County Road 38. We're also looking to facilitate construction of Weld County Road 9.5 and High Plains Boulevard with an IGA with Weld County and the developers in that location. Under reliable infrastructure, trying to improve what we have here, the Weld County Road 34 bridge construction of the 3rd and Welker intersection improvement project, which will be starting full steam ahead early in 2025, and continuing to collaborate with Berthoud on paving of County Road 7. Under public safety, things you'll see in the 2025 proposed budget are the safe routes to school construction, police facility design, and the new fire station at Liberty Ranch, which, again, not our project. Mountain View Fire will be building that station, but again, it's part of our projects because it's on our properties. We'll be doing that. Responsible growth. Oh, I already have that. Fiscal stability. We're going to continue to pursue grants for the construction of the Weld County Road 7 and Highway 66 underpass. We'll do a review of our impact fees and research funding opportunities for a future police facility. Under connected community, we'll see the completion of the Gold Star Memorial. We've got some playground replacements under the Conservation Trust Fund for playground replacements at North Creek and Founders Park. We're looking at initiating roundabout art projects off of I-25. High Plains Library construction, again, not a Mead project, but it's in the town of Mead, so we will have some impact there. And further economic development with the Built for Mead platform. And if we keep going beyond 2026, there's just a multitude of regional transportation projects that are ongoing and will be moving in the future. That's as we see growth in town and around this corridor of I-25. We'll be involved in those projects. In the future, we'll probably need to look at another regional park, whether that's at Liberty Ranch or Ames. Continued economic development and support of our business community. And again, a future police facility. I want to take this time to point out the ClearGov software and what's going on there. There's been some comments on the budget and why it's different than it was before. Staff is implementing ClearGov software. It's a cloud-based budget software. It is expected to improve efficiencies in the budget process, streamline the process, allow us to better track multi-year projects. It also is going to have for us a digital budget book for improved accessibility and transparency. So this budget book will allow members of the board and members of the public to go on our website, go through the budget book. They can compare year to year over it, and it's all just there and easy to look at. So it is a 2-year implementation process, which is why we're kind of halfway there. You're getting some of it now. Along with the implementation of the software, we are making some changes to our accounting categories. And so again, we've talked about that in the past, that you'll see some zeros where the numbers move across. And Lorraine has mentioned earlier, and we'll mention tonight, the accounting categories that we're moving to. Changes to the budget since presented in October. I just want to highlight what's been changed. The general fund beginning balance was corrected. There was a typo in one of the numbers. The general fund camp grant for a van. I believe Lorelei brought this to you, that she found this, the rec department found this great opportunity for a grant for an electric van. And the grant covers 95% of the van. So the van is $171,000, and you'll see that expense under community center in the budget, but the grant coming in is $162,000, so covers the majority of the cost. Now we'll still have operations and maintenance costs going forward with it, but getting most of the van covered if we get approved for that van, but we wanted to put it in the budget to give staff opportunity to apply for it. And then the capital improvement fund, those I-25 enhancements you'll see in the capital improvement fund. And that's just setting some money aside in case, as part of the segment 5 improvements to I-25, the town wants to do anything to add on to or embellish the project. The resolutions that are in your packet that I'm asking you to consider tonight are resolution number 95R 2024. That one would adopt the budget. The next one, 96R 2024, would approve the property tax mill levy that does need to be certified to the Weld County Assessor by December 15th. And then Resolution 97R 2024 would appropriate the funds for expenditures. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lorraine to go through the budget for you.
Thank you, Mary. Hello, Mayor and trustees. I am going to walk through the budget with you a little bit and try to help it not be so unwieldy as a 40-some page document. And by starting with the first page, that is the proposed budget summary, it just gives you the lay of the land. The town has 9 funds, and these are required under governmental accounting to keep track of the different types of revenues that you have and what they can be used for. The general fund is the main operating fund of the town, and it finances anything that isn't required to be in its own special fund for any particular reason. And it's starting the year with a fund balance of $7,094,000. That's the typo that was changed that Mary referred to before. It had $7,044,000, so there's a $50,000 typo in there. It's been corrected to $7,094. And the revenues and expenditures for the year are set to be equal. It's not a requirement that those be equal, but that's been the practice in the town of Mead to not budget more in any year from what is coming in those years' revenues. Therefore, the beginning fund balance doesn't get drawn down or used. So that's something for you to continue to look at, is you want to keep that policy when and if you want to spend down the beginning fund balances or build it up, then you would change the revenues and expenditures for any given year. The special revenue funds that you have are funds where the main revenue of the fund can only be used for certain allowed purposes. Your street improvement fund is mostly funded by a sales tax that was voted on by the public, and they voted to increase the sales taxes to be used for street improvements and maintenance, and therefore it's kept in a separate fund. It's never commingled into the general fund where it might be deemed to be used for some other purpose. And that starting the year with the $779,000 fund balance, revenues will be coming in to the tune of $4.7 million. And expenditures will be drawing down some of that beginning fund balance along with the current revenues to end the year with $400,000 in the fund balance for street maintenance projects. The Conservation Trust Fund is a state shared revenue. It comes from lottery proceeds that are shared. Some are kept by the state, about half of them are, and the other half are divvied up among all the cities and towns in Colorado based on population. And your share of income for the year is estimated to be $82,000. And you've been building up this fund over the past several years to use it for a project when you needed to use it, rather than just spending it on mowing or park maintenance each year. So you've got a beginning fund balance of $159,000, estimated revenues coming in of $82,000, and spending down some of that beginning fund balance and the current revenues to deplete that fund, and then it can start to build up again in future years. Brings it down to $6,000 at year end. The next group of funds are also special revenue funds, but we're showing that they're called impact fees. And these are based on the 4 types of impact fees that you charge development. And these impacts of growth are tracked, and these fees can only be spent on capital items that growth causes a need for. So you see there's police impact, there's municipal facilities impact fees, there's transportation impacts, and parks and open space impacts by new development. And the 4 beginning fund balances of those funds are shown there, as well as the estimates for current or 2025 revenues, and then the use of those. The most notable two that have the most notable changes are the municipal facilities fund that have been building up over time to the $6,297,000 that starts 2025 and being used during that year on various projects, in particular the community center, to build things that growth has caused the need for, and ending up the year with $1,966,000. In the transportation fund, similar road impact fees, transportation impact fees have been building up to $6.3 million. You're expecting another 12 million in various revenues, not just from impact fees, but from grants, et cetera. And expenditures during the year, if all of the projects that are budgeted can be realized in 1 year, bringing down that fund to 136,000 and getting a lot of these street projects built. Parks and open space impacts, again, it's built up to 629,000. Your more revenues will come in during the year based on new development. And you'll be spending, if all the projects can be completed in 1 year's time, $1,071,000 to use virtually all that's in that park and open space impact fee fund. Then you have a capital project fund, which is not based on impact fees. It's just set-asides that the town has set aside over time and continues to set aside every year of some of the general revenues for future capital needs. And it's starting the year with 4.6 million and going to spend a fair amount of that, 2.8 million, to end up with 1.9 million. And the final fund is your enterprise fund. This fund isn't tax-based or fee-based on impacts for new growth. It's based on selling services of processing the sewage in the town. And so you have customers that are being billed every month for what they are being provided in that sewer service. And these beginning fund balances or funds available was $1,695,000. Revenues will come in for the year about 2.4. You'll have about 2.7 in ongoing expenses, as well as some capital improvements to end the year with $1,000,003. So that's the lay of the land of what's in the book. You can flip forward to any of the funds that you want to delve into. The first 25 pages are all about the various departments in the general fund and the revenues of the general fund. So looking over to page 3, there's a 1-page summary of the general fund because it does have so many different parts to it with so many different departments. So the general revenues, again, the state budget law requires that the town show 1 year of actual information, an estimate for the current year, and a proposed budget for the future year. Here in Mead, we also show you a second year of actual and the current year's budget. So you have a lot of things to compare and see what the trends are and how things are going. So starting with fiscal year 2022 actual, the general fund had a beginning fund balance of 6,481,000. And you can see how it's shown to grow over time to end up at the 7,094,000 at the end of 25. So that's a good indication that you're not dragging down your resources yet in the general fund, and they're growing a little bit each year, about 500,000 from 22 to the end of 25. The general fund revenues will go over in a little more specificity on the next page, but so they're just shown in one line there, but you can see how they are tending to be around 9 or 10 million every year. They aren't vacillating that much. And then the expenditures by department, however, change a lot based on what's happening in the town and what projects you're doing. Administration is kind of a normal progression based on growth and the cost of living. And Board of Trustees, you can see the expenses there were 133,000 in 2022. Same as admin, most of these costs are based on staff or your own salaries for the Board of Trustees. And you did have a change in the amount that's paid to board members that occurred during this time, and that's why that line item went up as much as it did. Police started at 2 million in 2022, but as most of you know, there's been a trend to get fully staffed and to add more police officers and to enhance that operation. And so the growth you can see there is mostly from the addition of staff and bringing salaries up in order to attract and retain good employees. Community development, that one bounces up and down, and it's really kind of centered around 840,000 ish. 2024, 733,000. Then it's bumping up by about $250,000 for 25, and that's to do a special one-time project for the land use code in 2025. So that explains the jump there. On your parks, they started off in a lower amount of 543,000 in 2022. But for 2025 and in the intervening years, you've built more projects and you've had more capital outlay there to expand and complete some of the parks. Some of that is done in the Park and Open Space Impact Fund, and that's park in projects based on growth. But you've just had some normal development of some of your parks also that may have been charged to the general fund here. Community Center, you can see there had not been a department for in the past, and so 2025 is the first year, and that's an estimated first-year budget of $500,000 to start using that to gear up and to offer the programs that we'd want to offer there, and also to run and operate that fairly large building. Engineering is, or / Public Works Administration is a little bit of a jump happened in 2023 with the addition of a new additional staff member. And then in 2024, there was a vacancy for a while. So you see it drop down a little, and it's showing at 881 for 25. Municipal court is fairly steady. The main changes there usually are in the prosecuting attorneys, depending on how many and what types of offenses are being adjudicated in the court. Community engagement used to include recreation, and now that's going to be in the community center department by itself. So that had a budget this year of 846,000. Next year it's considerably less at 712,000. And then we have non-departmental, which I'll talk about when we get to that page. But generally, things that don't fit into one of these operating departments, but still a cost in the general fund will be shown there. There's some transfers that have happened between the general fund and other funds. So you can see how typically the general fund has been able to transfer quite a bit of money, 2 million, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, to the capital improvement fund. And that's the fund I mentioned sets aside money for future capital needs of the town. With that, I'll go over to the next page and spend a little time on the revenues, and then we'll go much more quickly through the departments. If you go to page 4, there's a line item shown for each of the various revenues that the town has. And you can see the top 2 revenues on page 4 are the property taxes and the sales taxes. For 2025 budget, the rightmost column, that's over $6 million. So these 2 line items are more than twice as much as all the other line items in the general fund combined bring in. So we keep our eye on these, and they're very important revenues, not only to the town of Mead, but to pretty much every town in the state of Colorado. These are your main sources of income for your general operations of providing administration and legislation and community development and police services and things of that nature. So it's common and normal to have this be your highest revenue. It's tax-based. You're not charging people individually for each time they use one of those services. Looking down at the under taxes, building permit use tax, you'll see another one of the larger revenues. And you have got several revenues in the town that are dependent on growth. And the town's policy is to have growth pay for itself. So when there's more development, these revenues that are based on growth, like building use tax and building permit fees and review fees, will be higher than when there's less. Back in 2022, you had $1 million in the building permit use tax. And there's been less development in recent years. And so it's down around 400,000 estimated for next year. Going down to the next section of intergovernmental revenue, there's a few revenues that the state collects primarily that they share with cities and towns that go into the general fund. And that's the road and bridge tax, cigarette tax, and federal and mineral leases and severance taxes. The road and bridge tax, since you now have that street fund, we quit putting in the general fund after 2022, and it goes in the street improvement fund. The first item under licenses and permits on page 4 is your building permit fees. And again, you can see how in 2022, you had over 800,000 in building permits fees. And next year, we're looking at 480,000, similar to what the past couple of years have been. So with growth, there's more revenue and more expense. So you can take a glance at page 5 and see some of those other trends, and building permit admin fees started out higher and went down. Developer application fees, the sixth one on page 5 was 72,000 in 2022, and it's gone down. Other things under miscellaneous, like royalties and things that dependent on natural gas and the drilling, et cetera, fluctuates based on that industry. But a good one to look at is the interest and dividend income. It's under miscellaneous, the fourth one there. We used to get about 190,000 in interest when the rates were so low, and the town had kept a lot of its money in checking accounts. And the policy change to move it into savings accounts at the local government investment pools has really increased a lot of the general fund revenues by almost $500,000 in 2023 alone. Down on the bottom of page 5 under grants, you'll see that your staff is incredibly good at seeking and getting grants. It's almost, it's amazing to me sometimes how many grants the town of Mead gets and how well regarded your staff is, and your applications for these grants are well regarded, and you get approvals very, very often. So down here in the general fund are a few of those. You'll see a lot more in the impact fee funds. But you'll see a DOLA grant for the land use code. And I mentioned that the community development budget was bumping up because of a big project. Land use code expense, part of which is going to be paid for by this grant. The camp grant for the senior van is shown there. That's one Mary mentioned in her presentation, $164,000. And that's about it. There's some revenue sharing on page 6 that comes from Mura, where they give money back from their tax increment financing that gets siphoned off the top of the town's taxes. So you have revenues coming in for 2025 of a nice 8-figure amount, $10,474,000 just to the general fund. I'd be happy to answer any questions about revenues before I go on to the expenditures. Okay. On the expenditures, you get into more detail, but at the top of each of these pages, beginning on page 7, is the department that corresponds to the listing that I showed you on page 3. So the administration department, board of trustees department, police department, community development. And this shows you the line item by line item that was in the roll-ups that were on page 3. So I won't spend a lot of time on these, but looking at administration, that's generally dependent on the most of the expenses there are due to salaries and the people working in administration. Page 9 is the Board of Trustees expenditures. And again, most of the increase here you can see in the second line where the salaries for the mayor and the board were changed and went up a bit in 2023. Down at the bottom of page 9 in your board budget, you have board outreach activities. And it has gone up in budget this year, back up to 35,000. For 2024, it's estimated that you spent 15,000 of that amount budgeted, but the 35,000 is there for your use should you want to use that for some outreach activities. The police department on pages 10 and 11 show those changes in staffing that I mentioned at the beginning of this. So most of these costs are in the personal services line items. And here is where Mary alluded to me mentioning the personal services is one type of a cost that cities or governmental accounting requires. Commodities are things you spend and use up. Contractual services are things you continue to buy or contract or pay for as you use them. And capital outlay is buying something of a lasting value like vehicles or equipment. You have capital outlay leases that you use in police to keep your group of vehicles for the police new and replaced every so often rather than going out to bid, waiting for them to be delivered, et cetera. You've got a leasing program that is very successful so far. And at this point, I'd like to show you in the back of the book, the listing of all those leases. It's in the second to last page. So if you want to delve into the vehicles that are under lease, they're shown here by year and by department and by fund as to what vehicles are leased, how long the lease term is, which department has it, which fund is paying for it. Going back to page 12, the Community Development Department, again, under the contractual services, the consulting fees there for 225,000. Consulting fees is for the land use code, and that's the one that you have a grant budgeted for 100,000 of the cost of that as a revenue. So when you look at the total expenses for this department on page 13, if you subtract out that 225,000, you'll see that the regular operating costs are about like they were this year. Streets used to be in the general fund back in 2022. You'll see all the costs there. Once that sales tax passed, the new fund was created and all the costs are shown in that new fund now, Fund for Streets. So that's not in the general fund anymore. It has a dedicated revenue stream. Parks expenditures is shown here. There's just capital outlay for building some of these parks seems to be the biggest changes in this budget. Those are shown on page 17. And your staff has details on what any of these projects are and how they total up to those amounts. Community expenditure, center expenditures. This department is brand new, as I mentioned, and it's showing the various line items for running the community center during the first year. There's mostly these technical items under contractual, such as creating outsourcing recreation programs and town events and community day that you already have that aren't just new because of the community center, but now are put in this budget so that all those types of activities are together in one department. Engineering expenditures, vehicle lease expenses are the ones that change mostly here with an addition of a new staff member or a new capital outlay for those leases. But this budget hasn't changed much since 2023 and 2024. Municipal court on page 22, you'll see that near the bottom, the prosecuting attorney line item is the one that bounces around the most. We're budgeting 18,000, but we expect this year, even though we budgeted the same amount, only to have about 12,000 in costs there. Community engagement now is more of the business outreach, and the marketing specialist position is in this department. It's not combined with recreation anymore. Surveys that you do, items that Lorelei handles as outreach and the website, et cetera, are in this community engagement expenditure department. On page 25 is that non-departmental that I mentioned I'd tell a little bit more about. And these are things that don't necessarily go to one certain department. And the town typically budgets its salary adjustments here so that when they're determined on a person-by-person basis, the right amount can be put into the budget for the various departments that have those employees. Capital outlay is put here, and special projects is $100,000, just a kind of a round number. Should some special projects come up, you have money to spend on it during the year, but it's not in someone else's budget to be spent. There is a transfer here near the bottom, transfer to street improvement fund. And the town decided when that street improvement fund was brought into being because of the special street sales tax, that the general fund would also keep contributing $375,000 a year for a while from its general revenues to that purpose, and not just have the street sales tax in that fund. So that's what the 375,000 is. It's shown as a transfer rather than an expense. It's going out of this fund and into the street fund, which is on the next page. So on the next page, on page 27, actually, you see that as shown as a revenue, $375,000 transfer from general fund, GF. You also show possible transfer from the capital improvement fund of 100,000. So this street improvement fund will start 2025 with we're done with the general fund. And that's all the rest of these funds have their own page or two. And these are all these special revenues that have to be tracked separately. Beginning fund balance 779, sales taxes coming in here, building use tax coming in here, but not at the level it did in 2022. Some intergovernmental revenues from those highway users taxes that I mentioned, the shared revenues from the state, they all come into this fund. And then the expenses are shown for each line item as to how they're spent. Most of the big dollar numbers are near the end of the fund on page 29 for capital outlay and leases and contingency. And also back on page 28 is the biggest one, $2,325,000 for asphalt and street patching. Conservation Trust Fund is next on page 30. That's those lottery funds coming in from the state that I mentioned earlier and using them in 2025 for a capital project costing $235,000. That's $85,000. It tells you at the top of the page for the North Creek Playground and $155,000 for Founders Park Playground and exercise equipment. Police Impact Fund. Impact fees of, again, going down from 2022 year by year, but total revenues coming in of 143, some vehicle leases for those police vehicles that were caused by growth. And ending with a fund balance of 77,000. Municipal facilities, this is where you start seeing a lot more of these big grants. This is for impact funds and special grants for municipal projects. Looking here on page 33, we have $1 million coming in from various federal grants, another $1 million from a DOLA grant for the community center, another $500,000 this year for that, and then some transfers coming in this year, but not next year, from various other funds. On page 34, the big item is in the middle, capital outlay for buildings and improvements. And that's for the community center, $1.1 million in 24 and 6.6 in 25, bringing down the fund balance from the starting point of 6.2 million to 1.9 million. And that's a testament to what you collect these funds for and how you should be using them for capital items that are required because of the growth of Mead. Transportation Fund, page 35. Take a snapshot of that in your mind. Look at all those grants coming in for the CDOT, underpass, federal grants, Third and Welker, contributions from Weld County developers, federal grants. You've got a massive amount of grants of $10,719,000 coming into this fund. If all the work is done on time, most of them will be reimbursement grants, so the staging of when you get that can shift. But this fund has a good beginning fund balance. It has good interest earnings, a lot of grants expected to be coming in, more impact fees coming in, a payment in lieu of construction coming in from a developer. So total revenues are forecast at $12.1 million for transportation. And then you've got your expenses, and here's where you'll see a bit of a difficulty in reading across because the changing of these account numbers to help Mead have a unified chart of account where the same thing means the same account number and the same department number mean the same thing no matter what fund it's in. So this is going to be improved next year with the completed implementation of the budget software that Mary's been working on. And she's gotten a lot of it already worked out, and it's working nicely for the staff. The capital outlay, $5 million down there for Weld County Road 9.5, 6.5 for Third and Welker. You can see how all this money is being spent. 12 million coming in 1 year, 17 million going out if it's all done in 1 year. and leaving the fund balance at about 136,000. It's been the practice of the town to budget all these projects, hoping that they will all go ahead at a good pace. And that way, because the budget's already there, should that happen, you already have the money appropriated and they can proceed. There's not going to be a delay to come back and say, oh, it looks like we can speed up faster than we thought, and have to come back and get appropriation approval. So this helps you with the grants saying that it's already approved, and it helps you to move forward quickly when there's a chance. The Parks and Open Space Impact Fund grants again here, 100,000 for the Trails Master Plan. You had donations during this current year of 54,000. And your 25 capital projects are there for the Liberty Ranch restrooms and the Gold Star Memorial Project. And that would bring this fund balance down to $1,000,674. The second to last fund is the Capital Improvement Fund. There you've got a lot of capital outlay built. And again, your department heads can give you the detail on that. It's budgeted, I should not built. And this fund is generally what you're putting aside year by year for future capital that's not based on growth. Just general wear and tear and general improvements that you would want to make on your capital facilities and infrastructure. The last fund is your sewer fund. And this is the enterprise fund where most of your revenues, when you look here, are user fees. They're not mostly taxes, unlike the general fund. They're not mostly impact fees, unlike the special revenue funds. They're not shared revenues coming from the state. They're your user fees for your users of your sewer system coming in, and the expenditures going out are for operating that system, billing the customers, and putting some, doing some capital improvements, which are shown at the bottom of page 42, coating channels, probes, cured in place pipes, blower replacement, things of that nature, and still keeping a good fund balance at the end of the year of $1,368,000. That's the last of the budget numbers, but the next page shows the approved positions by full-time equivalent that Mary referenced earlier. The last column of that chart shows Mura, and it shows up on a position by position basis how each and every position that's authorized in the budget is allocated to the various departments or funds. And so you can take a look at that. Of the 54 positions, less than 2 of them are allocated to Mura based on various administrative staff and planning staff's time and needs. The very last page of the book is required by the state to show a debt service schedule. You have very little debt here. You have a few capital leases for dump trucks, and looking at getting a street sweeper based on the same type of capital lease in 2025. And then you have sewer fund loan from the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority. That's a multi-year loan that you're paying off over time. That I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Lorraine, thank you very much. And Mary, thank you very much too. We'll first ask members of the public if they have any questions or comments, and then we'll ask the trustees for that, the same. For those who are in the audience here of the public, do you have any questions or comments on the process or for our staff? Okay, we'll turn it over to the trustees. Please ask questions and let me know how we're going to move. Go ahead.
I just had one quick question because I've already had my discussions with staff. Should we change the name of the community center one, since that does make it sound like it's specifically just for the community center? Should we maybe change that to community recreation, since we are kind of going to be encompassing all of our rec programs now underneath that? Because community center just seems too specific since we are adding those other things. Would that be, I don't know, just something to consider?
That was an
Not that
idea
big
that
of a
was
deal.
floated, recreation, community center, community recreation. So that certainly can be.
Okay, that was my only comment.
Rusty? Anything? Trustee Hagan?
That's kind of what was leading to my confusion because when is the community center actually going to be open? And I was like, how are we actually going to spend $500,000? And if it's open halfway through the year, would we expect it to cost us $1 million a year just to operate? I thought it was only community center focused costs.
The questions were answered.
The questions were answered.
Okay, good, great, perfect, thank you.
There was
Good,
confusion with the name.
that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So it would be helpful.
Okay.
the name.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions?
I don't
Oh,
have a
go ahead.
question, but I have a comment. This chart with the full-time equivalent, thank you. Like, that is the most clear, like, you think you understand it and you ask all the questions, but wow, to see it on paper and thank you. That was just, that one kind of blew my mind of how like, oh, here it is. So thanks for that addition.
I would assume that those percentages are guesstimates, right? Like that can fluctuate depending on different things, right? Those are
It
just
can, they
just
get looked at,
estimated percentages. Okay, I see.
they get looked at every year during the budget process to see if, oh yeah, this year we're gonna need way more for sewer for some reason, that type.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Any, you have your line on, do you have a
Yeah,
question?
I have another question.
Mhm.
It seems like in the non-departmental category that there was 36,000 in 2022 actual. Then it went to $463, so it dropped way down. And then we budgeted for 298,000, but we have 0 actual. What is this just like it's just a chunk of money we set aside so we can pull it to the different directions we want it?
Some of it is, sometimes the salary adjustments have been budgeted in the departments and sometimes they've been budgeted in one spot like they were for 2025. And depending on what happens with salary adjustments, that may or may not all be spent. And the capital outlay and the special projects are kind of put in there to balance out the budget, to have money available should something
But
happen.
it still takes board action to actually spend the money.
No, but generally your staff will come back and bring you information on those. And if there's a contract that's more than $25,000, then it would come back to you.
The purchase policy is $25,000.
One last question, and this may be for Erica, but I'm looking at just the amount of money that's in the sewer fund. And I was just wondering if there's a master plan, what percent of capacity we have left in the treatment facility, and whether we've done a rate study recently to see if we were collecting enough money to pay for that future expansion or improvements.
Erica can answer it. I can. Go ahead, Erica.
So yeah, let's take that a couple pieces. So the plan operates probably now at around 40%. We do have a requirement that when it reaches 80%, we have to start designing for our plant expansion. So we don't expect that to be happening anytime in the short term. That's fairly far down the road, maybe more than 5, probably more like 10 years from now. And the other question, I'm sorry, what was the
Rate
second
with
part
the
of-
rate study, when we last did a rate study.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the date was.
It was 2 years ago. So we did one 4 years ago. And then we entered into an agreement where we took the lift station that's over on the east side. And when we did that, we had them do a rate study and we used the same consultant again. And we revisited both the plan investment fees as well as the rates. And so this year, for 2025, we're recommending only a 2% rise in user fees. But we next year will more than likely be coming back to the board and doing a full rate study. We're getting a quote, but we think it's too high to do it that quickly when we just did it 2 years ago. Like you're looking at like 30 grand, and it doesn't seem like enough's changed in 2 years to do another study this year.
No EPA or water quality changes that have impacted the overall design or add components to it
Not at this time, no.
because our flows are so small, or 'cause I know they're like St. Vrain's had a lot of new
Well-
requirements imposed?
We are, because the size of the plant is smaller, but we have had rules that have come down, but we've made small changes in equipment. But basically, there's been no sweeping change that's caused a huge amount of expense. The plant is getting older. It was commissioned in about 2008, 2006. And so it's getting, there are components that are, we have more maintenance, but capacity wise, we're still under 50%.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I'm not even sure who to direct this question to, but more for, well, myself, but also I think the general public, because the police tax didn't pass. You guys are so good at balancing our budget and using the funds that we have, but what, is there one area that was impacted the most that now we need to reallocate to the police? Or is that too tough to answer because it's, yeah.
Well, I'm not 100% sure what your question is. I guess if you looked at the graph that shows for our budget for 2025, 33% of that budget is now police. If you just see from 2022 to 2025, we went from about 2 million to 3.4 million. I think the question is, what won't we be able to fund real quickly? Because the police, no offense, chief, but they are like Lady Pac-Man in terms of even if we don't add another officer, just the salary increases, the training increases, the regulation increases, it will, I would predict by next year, without absent any other fund, we're going to be over 40% of the budget will be police. So I can't tell you specifically what we won't fund, but I would say we're going to give a lot less money to that CIP fund. And sooner or later, we're going to get to the part where we have to decide park maintenance, police. We haven't gotten to that choice yet, but that's where we're heading, absent another funding source.
Thanks for the question. Yes, Mary.
And I want to point out that it's pretty clear to see if you look at the non-departmental funds that Lorraine pointed out, our transfers to the CIP were huge 2 years ago or so. This year, there is not one in the budget at all. So our revenues are meeting our expenditures. So we're not able to put money away for future capital projects. So it's going that direction, right?
The capital improvement fund is for the maintenance projects or new projects.
The capital improvement fund is kind of where we put money aside. It's just a standing fund to save money up to pay for other projects. So this year we have in there I-25 enhancements. What else is in there? Remember the capital improvement fund?
Lorraine indicated that one of them was just for maintenance.
No, the capital improvement fund this year has funds for art in the roundabout, paving the town hall parking lot, and I-25 enhancements. So those are the things out of the capital improvement fund that are in there. And again, that money
Slim. Yeah.
was transferred into there from the general fund over the last several years.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Where we can save up
Yeah.
money for bigger
Yeah.
projects, because we don't take debt, we don't take on debt. Fund, say, a $7 million community center, we save up until we have enough to actually complete that project.
That's correct. Is there any other questions for?
This question is for Mary, and this comes back to one of Brad's first questions about spending. And I wanted you to repeat what you told me in the budget class with Yumi and Babcock about who can spend money without coming to the board. And if I remember, the town manager can spend up to 50,000 if she needs to without coming to the board. Am I saying this right? Or what was it that you told me in the meeting?
Purchasing policy that gives limits of what the staff can spend. So, and it also says when we have to get one quote versus 3 quotes versus going out for an RFP. So it says all of that, and when we need to come back to the board for approval. And Helen's authority is 50,000? I'm not thinking that.
But just to expand on that, it's not, my authority merely says, I don't need to come back to the board for a contract for, say, there's a $10,000 contract for something. It's not like I go on a shopping spree. Everything, this book is my Bible. This is what dictates what I do. Every time I approve something, Marcus approves something, it all correlates back to the budget. So we can't just think of something that we want to do and say, oh, it only costs $24,999, so I can approve it. It's really more the purchasing policy that you delegate that authority to me, that I'm going to do the right thing and follow the adopted budget.
Thank you, Mary and Helen. That's what I wanted reiterated, going back to Hagan's question. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
One more question. And this is a history lesson for me because I kind of got a summary of it at the mayor's meeting, but I just wanted to know, are we able to charge for waters, like open a water fund? Because that was like in other towns I've worked for and done rate studies for, the water fund, the potable water fund is where they generate a lot of money from. And so I know that's all handled by Little Thompson, but is that like, are we barred from billing, accepting master meter charges from Little Thompson and individually metering out charges to all the residents?
So we, in 2002, the town voted to give its water infrastructure to Little Thompson. We have an IGA with
The
Little
town
Thompson.
board or the town?
The town, it
had a
it
public
went
vote?
to a vote of the people.
Okay.
And the people voted and they got like, I think 900,000 that got divvied up amongst all the residents. But they basically got some money, but they also relinquished all the infrastructure and the management of the water to Little Thompson. But we also have another water district, Longs Peak. We have an IGA. Most of the town is covered by Little Thompson. And a small piece, basically the high school and Liberty Ranch, is Longs Peak. Any new expansion in the town is Little Thompson. And the answer is no, we can't just go back and master meter like we used to pre-2002. So they control our water, those 2 water districts. And it can't be a source of revenue for the town, nor can our sewer fund. It has to be, it's an enterprise fund. So all the money that goes in and goes out stays in it like a little capsule.
Yeah, I understood that it's an enterprise fund, but other towns use it similarly and they carry salaries in it. And, it's just another funding source for existing. So I understand. That answers the question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything further, we will close the public hearing. It's 7:27. Do I have a motion for resolution number 95-R-2024?
I move to approve resolution number 95R-2024, resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting a budget for the town of Mead, Colorado for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2025, ending on the last day of December 2025.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Is there a motion regarding resolution number 96-R-2024, levying our property taxes?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 96-R-2024, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, levying general property taxes for the year 2024. Is that supposed to be 2025? No, it's for
no.
24. Okay,
Yep.
to help defray the cost of government for the town of Mead, Colorado for the 2025 budget year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Strands,
Yes.
trustee Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next is resolution number 97-R-2024. Is there a motion regarding this resolution for appropriating our funds?
I move to approve resolution number 97-R-2024, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amount and for the purposes as set forth below for the town of Mead, Colorado for the 2025 budget year.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Strands,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, thank you very much. Motion carries on all three resolutions. Thank you very much, staff, for putting this all together for the Board of Trustees tonight. I'd like to go into the second public comment of the evening. We have no further business, and so I'd like to open it up for the same guidelines previously stated in our first public comment. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to address the Board of Trustees tonight on anything that's on the agenda or not? Okay, seeing no one, thank you for everything. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Next is our elected official reports. Do any of the trustees have any reports this evening? Trustee France.
Happy holidays to all.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you very much for everyone coming to the Coffee with the Mayor. We regularly meet once a month, first Saturday from 8 to 10, and I really do appreciate everyone's time that taken out of their personal lives and to meet new neighbors and discuss lots of different things. Also, a big shout out to our Public Works and our community engagement departments. Christmas in the park was awesome. At 43 degrees when we left here at 7:30 that night, it was just really joyful. And the people really, I just think that everything went just smoothly. The lights on the tree stayed on, and it was just perfect. And thanks to our police department for engaging in a great parade. We've had some, there was an interesting parade, so thank you. Also, ribbon cutting that was done at Leaning Tree. Thank you very much for coming, staff, and for trustee Trans for coming. It was really neat, and that building is just huge inside. I'm so happy that they're here. Coming up, we have a variety of course, transportation meetings this weekend. CDOT Regional 4 quarterly meeting. Hopefully, Kevin, you'll be with me on that call. And of course, our Southwest Dr. Cog meeting, and of course, my regular Dr. Cog meetings down in Denver, and the Regional Transportation Commission is coming up. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Strands,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. The December 9th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned at 7:31. Thank you, everyone, for a great year. I look forward to 2025. Thank you, staff, the community, and our Board of Trustees. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.